The studio lights burned brightly, casting a dramatic glow over the set as the red recording light blinked on. The audience, both in the studio and watching from home, leaned forward in anticipation. This wasn't just another talk show. It was a high-stakes face-off between a sharp-tongued liberal talk show host and one of the most polarizing and innovative figures of our time, Elon Musk. Known for her relentless questioning and no-holds-barred approach, the host was ready to push Musk into a corner. Sitting across from her, dressed in a simple dark blazer, Musk exuded a calm demeanor. His hands rested loosely on his knees, but his eyes carried a piercing focus that suggested he was ready for anything she might throw his way. "Mr. Musk," the host began, her voice steady, but with a sharp edge. "You've been called many things, visionary, disruptor, and even controversial. But some critics argue that your recent decisions and political views raise serious ethical concerns. How do you respond to those who claim you're prioritizing profits over people?" Musk tilted his head slightly, a faint smile playing at the corners of his mouth. For a moment he seemed to study the room, as if weighing his response not just for the host, but for the broader audience watching this exchange. Finally, in a measured tone, he replied, "I think it's fair for people to question things. Questioning is healthy. But questioning isn't the same as assuming bad intent. If we're going to talk about ethics, maybe we should start by asking a bigger question. Who controls the narrative, and why?" The host blinked, momentarily caught off guard by his pivot. This wasn't the straightforward defense she'd expected. "Are you suggesting there's a larger issue at play here, beyond your actions?" she asked, her tone carrying a mix of skepticism and curiosity. Musk leaned forward slightly, his voice calm but carrying unmistakable gravity. "Absolutely. What concerns me isn't just the criticism I face. It's the control of information, the way narratives are shaped to guide public perception. That's where the real danger lies." The room seemed to hold its collective breath. Musk wasn't just deflecting the question. He was steering the conversation into uncharted waters. The audience, both in the studio and at home, could feel the tension building. This wasn't going to be a typical interview. It was becoming something far more profound. The host quickly regained her composure, leaning forward with her own intensity. "Mr. Musk," she pressed, "let's not stray too far from the point. We're talking about your decisions, like cutting staff at your companies, your controversial stance on free speech, and even your questionable alliances. Are you suggesting that the backlash you face is part of some orchestrated narrative?" Musk sat back in his chair, his posture relaxed, but his gaze unwavering. "I'm suggesting that what people believe is often shaped not by what's true, but by what they're told to believe. Let's take a step back and look at the media landscape today. How often do you see balanced reporting? How often are voices that challenge the status quo silenced or dismissed as controversial?" The host raised an eyebrow, her expression a mix of skepticism and curiosity. "So, you're claiming you're a victim of media manipulation?" "Not just me," Musk said evenly, his voice calm but resolute. "It's bigger than me. The question isn't whether I'm a victim. The question is, who decides what you believe, what you're allowed to question? When information is controlled, freedom dies. It's that simple." The host exhaled sharply, clearly trying to keep the conversation on her terms. "That's a bold statement," she said, her voice firmer now. "But let's be honest. People have legitimate concerns about your platforms. Misinformation spreads like wildfire. Don't you think some controls are necessary to prevent harm?" Musk's lips curled into a wry smile. "Control in whose hands? Who decides what's misinformation? I can tell you it's not as clear-cut as people think. When you give a small group the power to determine the truth, you're handing them a weapon that can be used to suppress dissent, stifle innovation, and control minds." For a moment, the host faltered. Her carefully prepared questions seemed to crumble under the weight of Musk's counterpoints. The dynamics of the interview had shifted dramatically. This wasn't just an exchange of ideas. It was turning into a battle of ideologies. But Musk wasn't finished yet. His next words would take the conversation to an even deeper level. He leaned in slightly, his eyes sharp and focused, his voice dropping to a measured tone. Here's the real danger. When media and powerful institutions align, they don't just control the story, they control reality. And that's when freedom isn't just at risk, it's already gone. The host shifted uncomfortably in her chair, visibly grappling with how to regain control of the narrative. "That sounds like conspiracy talk, Mr. Musk," she said, her tone almost defensive. "Are you saying there's some coordinated effort to manipulate the world?" Musk's response was measured but direct. "I'm saying there's a system in place, and it's not designed for transparency or accountability. Let me give you an example," he said, holding the room in suspense. "How many times have we seen stories come out, only to be debunked weeks, months, or even years later? By then, the damage is done. People don't remember the correction, they remember the lie, and the ones telling those lies face no consequences." The room grew still. The audience, the crew, and even the host seemed to hang on every word. Musk's tone remained calm, but the weight of his message was undeniable. The host tried to regain her footing, her voice firm. "But isn't that why platforms like yours, social media, are under scrutiny? You've allowed unchecked information to spread. Doesn't that make you part of the problem?" Musk's response was quick, his words carrying weight. "Scrutiny is important, but it has to go both ways. When governments, corporations, and media work together to label dissent as misinformation, it's not about truth, it's about control. That's why free speech matters, even when it's messy, because the alternative is far worse." The host's confidence began to waver. Her carefully constructed arguments struggled to hold against Musk's relentless logic. "You're painting a very dystopian picture, Mr. Musk," she said, her voice quieter now. "Are you saying there's no hope for balance or accountability?" Musk's eyes narrowed slightly, his voice quieter, but no less powerful. "There's hope," he said, "but it starts with people questioning what they're told, not just accepting it because it comes from a trusted source. We have to be vigilant. We have to demand transparency, and we have to remember that freedom isn't something given, it's something we fight to keep." The weight of his words hung in the air, the silence in the studio almost deafening. Even the host, known for her sharpness and wit, seemed momentarily at a loss for words. For once, the focus wasn't on winning an argument, it was on understanding the gravity of the conversation. As the interview drew to a close, Musk delivered a final thought that left everyone in the room, and the millions watching at home, grappling with uncomfortable truths. Every decision we make, every piece of information we consume, shapes the world we leave behind. The question isn't just about power or control. It's about responsibility. Are we willing to question the narratives we're fed? Are we willing to seek the truth, even when it's uncomfortable? The screen faded to black, but Musk's words lingered in the minds of everyone who had witnessed the exchange. It wasn't just an interview. It was a wake-up call, a challenge to look beyond the surface and take ownership of our own beliefs. Because in the end, the most dangerous thing isn't the loss of truth, it's the loss of the will to seek it.